So almost all my podcasts start with me talking about LinkedIn. Sorry, I'm doing it again. But several months ago, I saw a guy. I don't know if I connected with him or he connected with me, but his name was Phung Ling. And I was like, who is this guy? He was in college and he was posting on LinkedIn, which nobody does. But I was really impressed by him and learned a ton from him. We ended up talking to each other and we're friends now. I later found him on TikTok and this guy has absolutely blown up. So can't wait to hear from him today. Phung Ling, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me, Hampton. It's awesome just reconnecting. I know we chatted on Zoom and met on LinkedIn. Obviously, I think I connected with you because I saw that you were killing it on LinkedIn, and that's when I just started posting on LinkedIn. But it's been awesome. Glad you found me on TikTok, and we got the opportunity to connect. And I appreciate you having me on your podcast.
Absolutely, man. Well, it's been really cool to watch your story over the last like year and a half, and I'm excited to tell people about it today. So first off, you were in college not long ago. How on earth did you just start posting on LinkedIn, and why did you do that, and kind of what did that lead to?
Yeah, 100%. So that's a great question. First of all, I I'll give you kind of like a brief context as to why I made LinkedIn in the first place. I think every college student goes through this where like in the phase of a business class, they tell you to make a LinkedIn profile. I did that my freshman, sophomore year in college, never used it. And then I got more strategic because so I'm someone that wants to go into sales and I noticed that uh, I discovered tech sales, software sales, my senior year in college, like very early on. And then I noticed on LinkedIn, there's a lot of salespeople that post content specifically in the software space. And so I started connecting with everybody that was in that space that posted on LinkedIn. And I figured the best way for me to network with them and get into the kind of the inner circle as well is to also start posting. But I also wanted to like build up my writing skills, and I think LinkedIn really helps with that, posting on there at least. So that's why I started posting on LinkedIn. It's a very strategic move. But yeah, I hope that explains it in a nutshell.
No, that's a great way to put it. And for those of you listening that still don't really understand the LinkedIn thing, that's okay. You don't have to do it, but none of us are just posting to post. One of the quickest ways to burn out on there is just to kind of throw something up and then not really network, not really engage, not help other people. And so what a lot of these are turning into is conversations like Pong and I had probably a year ago. And so at one point, I think Pong had decided, hey, I want to go into tech sales. Hampton, I know you're in that. Let me hop on and I would love to chat with you about that. Now, I know you did that with tons of people, but what did the process of asking for people's time look like? And then when you got on those calls, what were you doing? Because if you don't say it, I'm going to say it for you. I was super impressed, and it was just different than what other people were doing.
Thank you, Hampton. So the process of going about that was like a few ways. I knew that as a student I had all the advantage because there weren't a lot of other students that were doing that. One that gave me an edge to say, hey, I'm a student wanting to connect. But I didn't just go and do that like sparingly, right? I was strategic in that aspect as well. I would like their posts, I would comment on their posts, and when I started noticing that they would respond to my comments and they would kind of know who I am at least. I would do that for maybe a week or so, and then I would slide in the DMs, right? And I think
Come
that's
on.
exactly probably what I did with you as well, Hampton. Is I'll just very subtly say, hey, my name is Pong. I'm a senior at IU. I'm wanting to get into tech sales. I noticed that you are in tech sales. I would love to pick your brain for 10, 15 minutes at your convenience. And it was a very soft approach. And I think that worked really well with professionals that genuinely either had the time or just wanted to make the time to chat because they noticed that I've been supporting their content. And when we got on those calls, I was very prepared. I wanted to show them that I appreciated their time. So what I would do is I would actually create like PowerPoints of myself and my story and who I am so that I could share with them and to show them that I appreciated their time and that I was prepared for this call. So that's something that I did that was a little bit strategic that I don't think many students took advantage of.
I was grinning from ear to ear when you said, so if you don't mind, I kind of want to share my screen real quick to tell you a little bit about where I'm coming from. And then you asked me about myself too, and I'm like, this guy gets it. This is awesome. And I think for those of you listening, especially younger folks in college or right out of college, you generally might not have that much to offer to like an older professional. But people want to help you. Like if you do it the right way, like if you engage with them and, show them that you don't ask for hours and hours, just for a little bit of time. And then you just come prepared with questions. People want to help you. And I think that the older you get in your career, probably the harder that is going to be. But if you're in college and you're active on LinkedIn, it's really not going to be that hard to get a few minutes of people's time. And so when we got on that call, I know it wasn't super long, just because I want the audience to hear a little bit about you. What were some of those slides? I mean, I remember the fashion thing, the soccer. I mean, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been playing soccer pretty much my whole life, and that was something I wanted to make note of as well. And I basically just shared like genuinely what I was interested in. I wasn't trying to really impress somebody with like all of the things like college stuff, but just genuinely who I am as a person, because that's the goal of the conversation, is to genuinely connect. So I would share like my passion about like fashion, right? And I love photography as well. So those two kind of land hand in hand, and I shared the soccer phase. So yeah, I think just some of those things, and also my girlfriend, she's a big part of my life, and we've been together for 4 years, so it's a really long time, I think, especially for our age nowadays. But those were some of the things that I shared on my PowerPoint.
That's awesome, man. So after doing this over and over again, meanwhile, you're looking for jobs because you're about to graduate college. Talk us through the process of finding jobs, talking to recruiters, and how you ultimately landed at Adobe.
Yeah, so again, everything is extremely strategic. Every time I would get on these calls, if I didn't already have like interviews in place with where like companies where I would potentially want to work in, I would always ask for a referral at the end. I would always say, hey, I like Hampton, you don't know me that well. We've only been chatting for 15, 20 minutes, but from what you've seen so far, do you think I would do well in your SDR, BDR role? And if there's an opening, I would love to get a referral from your end if that's okay with you. So again, a very soft approach, but I would always ask for referrals, because something I knew was that an internal referral meant a lot more than just an external application. Because whereas like if I'm applying to a big company, like say Adobe was one of the companies I applied to, my application was going to get looked at. So I knew I had to get an internal referral. So that's something that I did strategically. And another thing that I did in my application process, in my job search process, was heavy LinkedIn users. So I would take advantage of the fact that my LinkedIn profile had decent amount of engagements. And so what I would do is I would literally go on the company's page, and this is exactly what I did with Adobe, which is insane. I went to Adobe's page, sorted through by people, sorted through by recruiter, and then I connected with like I think 11 recruiters, and all sent them like DMs on LinkedIn, and expressed interest in the role. And luckily one of them got back with me, and I think that had a lot to do with the way my LinkedIn was structured, the way that I sent out that message. All of those little things came in handy and ultimately resulted in me getting an interview. And the rest is where we are now. So that's something that I like to share as well. LinkedIn is huge.
Dude, it is huge. And you had a plan, and you were very strategic, and you worked hard. I think a lot of people are like, well, I applied to 50 jobs and nobody got back to me. Well, of course, because there's 1,000 other people doing it. But if you are more strategic and relational like you, it's going to take you a really long way. And so that's what I've learned from you and watching you do this. And I know that right now you're helping a ton of other people do this on TikTok. It looks like you've built like a community there. And so I didn't really talk to Pong for 6 months or so. I think I texted him when he got a job and was excited for him. But all of a sudden, I get on TikTok not knowing what I'm doing there. And I see this guy's got like 4,000 followers. I'm like, dude, what's going on here? So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I really started posting on TikTok mid-June. And the reason why I did that was because one, like I wanted to grow in a different avenue other than LinkedIn. And two, because I knew that like the people that I was trying to impact was more on TikTok because they were mostly all my age range, and I was still in school at the time as well. So TikTok was a great place for that. And the my whole purpose of being on TikTok is that so I've been interested in sales since my sophomore year in college, and I didn't learn about SaaS or software tech sales, whatever you want to call it, until my senior year in college, and which kind of like bothered me and it pissed me off, quite frankly, because I was like, how in the world is this industry so lucrative and you can make a lot of money and do really well, but I hadn't heard of it until my senior year, which I felt was even late at the time. So then I was like, there has to be a lot of other students who haven't heard about tech sales that are interested in the industry. So if they hear it from somebody who is still in school, just graduated, talking about the industry, they would relate to it more. And I started posting content around what the industry is, how you should get in, how you should structure your resume, how you should reach out to recruiters, how you should like basically interview and things like that. So that's what I've been doing, and then took it up a notch. And as you mentioned, the Discord thing, I started a Discord channel where like people can join, and then we have a bunch of other things. We can get into that later, but that in a nutshell is how and why I started on TikTok.
That's so cool just seeing you help a lot of other people. And I've received this question a lot from LinkedIn, and I know that you're getting this now. People will ask, why are you doing this? What's the long term play? How are you monetizing this? And the answer for Pong and me is $0. And long term play, maybe don't know all of that, but I think that what you're doing is networking and building connections and helping people, which if nothing even comes from it, you can be satisfied that you literally helped other people. But I know that you're already seeing the fruit of some of that in a bunch of different ways. And so like, do you have any advice for the person that's thinking about starting something or putting themselves out there, but maybe they don't know, they don't feel like they have all their ducks in a row or something like that?
Yeah, I would generally say like, and Hampton, you know this really well, but it's like you're not going to be ready like ever if you continue to wait for that. Like that's never going to come. And I'm a big proponent on LinkedIn of just saying like just hit post, man. Like quite frankly, nobody's going to care in the beginning. Like you'll have no traction. People won't care about what you're posting. Really, people only care about themselves and they don't really care about what other people are saying or sharing for the most part. And then once you've gained an audience, once you've gained a bit of a following, by that point, it'll be like natural for you to post and say things. So just getting to the habit of making one post a day or even a week to start with will kind of really get you going. So that's what I would recommend is just go in there, man. And for the most part, people don't care about you as much as you think they do. So why not? Just take a
Why
shot.
not? Hey, why not you? Why not you if you're listening to this? And here's the thing. It doesn't have to be social media. You don't have to post stuff out there. There's lots of other things. If it's like some sort of business idea you have or something, just start. I mean, I think people say often it's you will learn so much more by taking action than reading all the books and watching everything on YouTube. So remember that if you're thinking about starting something. So Pong, I would love to hear some of your story, and I know part of that has to do with why you wanted to get in sales. Correct me if I'm wrong, but can you just kind of dive into where you came from and who you are and everything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my family is originally from a country called Burma or Myanmar, Southeast Asia. We moved to the U.S. as refugees when I was 9 years old. So literally, quite literally, my family came from nothing, right? My parents still don't speak English. They work at warehouse jobs. They work in factory jobs. My dad's in his 60s. My mom is in her late 50s. And they still do that. And so for me, one of the biggest factors into why I got into sales was because academically, I did really well in college. In high school, different story. I graduated with like a 2.6 GPA. I thought it was 2.4, a little higher than that. I checked, it's like 2.6 something. Not impressive at all. But then I saw how that made my parents feel because I couldn't get into the university I wanted to go to. So I went to a much smaller university and then transferred later. But then I excelled in college because that's when I realized like I made up my mind that I wasn't going to be this like nonchalant person that wasn't really trying and didn't care about life. So I did really well in school. I was a triple major, and I started looking at jobs and thinking about my career and saying, what career or profession would make me the most amount of money if I just really worked hard? And then sales kind of naturally landed itself because sales was that profession. You would be rewarded in proportion to the value that you bring to an organization. And I really liked that aspect. And so that's why I got into sales. And tech sales just happened to be, I think, the most rewarding sales profession you can get into, at least from the research that I've done and what I know. So that's why I got into sales. That's why I got into tech sales, and I was very open and honest about that in my interviews. Is because I want to help out my parents. They still work in factory warehouse jobs. My goal in the next 5 years is to retire my parents, is to be at the point where I'm making enough money that my parents can both be out of jobs. So that's my goal and why I got into sales. And I think you should be very proud to say that. Don't let that be something that you can't share with recruiters or hiring managers. As long as you bring it up the right way, I think that's a great reason to be in sales. Why would you be in sales if not for that? Is my question. So yeah.
Man, that is amazing. I'm like trying not to tear up here just thinking about you providing for your parents, and I just think that's really special. There's a lot of different things of maybe not giving it your all in high school, but then you had, it sounds like, and not to be cheesy, but the name of this podcast is like Wake Up and Lead. And when I say lead, for those of us listening that are younger, that usually starts with leading yourself, you know? And so in college, it's very clear that you had this moment where you said, nobody's going to hand me anything. Like, I've got to take ownership of my life, and tech sales is the avenue I want to go to provide for my parents. So, that's really cool, man. So, I mean, you got to America when you were 9. Was that challenging for you? I take it you probably didn't know any English at that time, right?
Yeah, it was extremely challenging because everything is upside down, right? Like I've never seen a car like like I've never been on a school bus. So even little things like that was challenging. And I think um, initially going to school was extremely difficult because you don't speak the English, you don't speak the language, and uh, that alone, man, like trying to learn English, like everything on top of the culture shock was, yeah, it's extremely challenging. But all of that kind of led to now where like I know if there's a challenging obstacle, like I've overcome that, like this is nothing compared to that. So I think it's always kind of it gives me now the perspective to say, yeah, I've overcome that, like I can overcome this.
Man, that is really cool, and I know that you've been able to help a ton of people with that. So I take it your parents are probably pretty proud of you, knowing what you're doing and what goal you're pursuing. Now you're in Texas, right? Where are they?
Yeah, so I'm in Texas. My parents are in Indiana still.
Okay, I got you, man. Well, I'm super excited just to watch you grow and ultimately be able to help them. Can you talk to us just a little bit about, now that you've been in tech sales here for a little bit at Adobe, how has that been? And if you don't brag on yourself, I'm going to brag on you for you. I saw your post the other day from your manager, so talk to us a little bit about it.
Thank you. It's been awesome, and I think because it was a career in like avenue that I wanted to pursue. When I got into the industry, I want to say as prepared as I could be from a student's perspective, and I was very excited about the role, and so that gave me, I think, just you know a bit of an advantage over my peers because I was excited to do this. Like I was prepared for this. I was ready. And it was challenging the first couple of months because I genuinely just didn't know about the role that much. I didn't know about the product. So there was a lot of moments where like I would study outside of work hours about the product, about the sales processes, and the kind of conversations you have, the personas, and all of those things. But right now, like I think I'm at the point where I've adjusted quite well, and I know the sales process enough. I definitely don't know enough to say like I'm all that, but like just enough to be okay and performing, you know, relatively well compared in the industry.
Dude, there's just this theme of you putting in the work. I mean, even like studying the product and the sales process outside of work. I just think that that's a huge deal, and rest is super important. But guys, I mean, with us being in our 20s, there's so much of an opportunity, and frankly, not to bash on our generation, but there's not a whole lot of competition. I mean, if you work hard, like you're gonna be just fine. I promise. Tell me about that email you got from your manager the other day.
So, like, I'm so proud. I think I said top three, but that's probably my proudest moment at Adobe so far. So I support three account executives, and those account executives kind of support the largest accounts for Adobe, biggest customers for Adobe in the East Coast. And one of my account executives emailed my manager, and I wasn't included on the email, but my manager forwarded the email to me, and it was basically a kudos. And the account executive in the email said, you know, in my 15 plus years in sales and nearly 2 years at Adobe, Pong is by far the best BDR I've had the opportunity to work with. And he basically just wanted to thank my manager for the work that we're doing. So yeah, it's a very humbling moment, and I'm very proud of that email.
Dude, I love that. I saw that and I was like, let's go, Pong. Come on, man. Um, so kind of wrapping up here, and you may not know the answer to this, but aside from the big goal of really providing for your parents here in the next however many years, do you have some other long-term goals, whether it's personally or professionally, that you're working towards?
Yeah, there's a few. And as far as the long-term goal is concerned, I definitely want to have a family, and um, that will probably happen. Marriage and things like that is all in the scope in the next 4 years. And then I don't have like an extremely long-term goal. I'm not sure if that's a bad thing to even share on here, but I don't
No.
think I have a extremely long-term goal. But I generally work with like the next 3 to 5 year plan, and that is something that I'm constantly thinking about, is like the next 3 to 5 years, and then just setting smaller goals for me to make sure I am progressing towards that 3 to 5 year goal. So my next 3 to 5 year goal is like reaching the enterprise account executive level in the next 3 to 5 years. And I would say I'm tracking really well to that. And another goal is I want to retire my parents financially. And I am tracking very well to that as well. So that's just like, I only set like 3 to 5 year goals. I don't think I have like the next 15, 20 year goal.
I don't really think I do either, man. And I think a lot of times there's nothing wrong with setting like really big goals a long way away, but even just being faithful for a couple years at a time can go a really long way. And I mean, that's a pretty amazing goal that you have for your parents. So I love that. Last thing, what kind of habits do you have? Like, are there any certain like non-negotiables that you have for every day in your life?
Yes. And like I'm not super crazy about them, but and I don't wake up at 5 a.m. by the way. I do wake up at 6 a.m. though, and I think that's early for like our age. So some of my non-negotiables are like I have to work out, man, at least once a day. If not, like if that's not how I start my day, I'll really be bothered. Um, so I generally go for a run in the morning and then try to lift in the evening, or I'll just swap them, or I won't run and I'll just lift. But that's the only non-negotiable I have throughout my day, besides like my work KPIs. Those kind of get me going as well. But I think that's my only non-negotiable, is waking up early and then getting a workout in. Because man, if I don't start my day that way, like I don't know what I would do.
I I'm with you, man. I get that. No, that's a It doesn't have to be 5 a.m., guys, but maybe earlier than 7. And then if you're doing something active, you're not going to regret it. So, man, this has been awesome, guys. I will keep you in the loop on Pong's life. You can find him on TikTok, LinkedIn. What's your TikTok name? I'll put it in the below, but just ask him.
Yeah, it's just my first and last name, so Phung Ling. Same thing on LinkedIn. Yeah, feel free to
Okay.
connect with me on there. I always accept like every connection request I get. I'll never Hollywood you. So please feel free to connect with me, message me. I'm happy to get on calls as well.
I love it, man. Well, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Hampton. I appreciate it.